I have a quote that I like to read when I'm talking about Stephen Bishop. Of course, Stephen Bishop, 17 years old whenever he began guiding tours in this cave. He wasn't initially guiding because he wanted to be a cave guide. He was guiding because he had no other choice. As part of the property from the cave owner, Dr. John Cron, Stephen had no choice but to come into this cave. Eventually, he did, I believe, enjoy guiding. He explored about 20 miles of cave just on his own, and at first, it's very important to remember that Stephen is a slave. If you were coming here to Mammoth Cave to take a tour, you were coming here because you were one of the most wealthy people, not only in the United States, but in the world. People from Europe were coming over here. At first, Stephen would probably not make eye contact with you on the surface. It was not his role, and it wasn't your role as a wealthy person. You don't do that. You don't make eye contact with the slaves. It's just not appropriate. Eventually, Stephen, being the personable guy that he is, he begins to speak several languages, Latin and Greek. He can converse with people. He follows along with the geology. He follows the science of the cave, and eventually people go home and they write about their trip to Mammoth Cave. They write that they left their name on the cave walls with smoke from a tallow candle. Those things are written about in travel journals and articles. So Stephen becomes very famous, and eventually people don't come here to take the Mammoth Cave tour, they come to take the Stephen Bishop tour. And I carry a quote in my pocket. A writer and poet named Bayard Taylor in the 1850s wrote a book called Home and Abroad. And in Home and Abroad, he describes his visit to Mammoth Cave. And I like to really emphasize the fact that this quote is from 1855. It's a full 10 years before the end of the Civil War. When President Lincoln signs the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, Kentucky is not required to free any slaves. Kentucky never left the Union. Therefore, that proclamation did not apply. So in 1855, Bayard Taylor says of Stephen, he is the model of a guide. He is quick, daring, and enthusiastic. He has a degree of intelligence unusual in one of his class. I think no one can travel under Stephen's guidance without being interested in the man himself and associating Stephen in memory with the realm over which he is the chief ruler. So Bayard Taylor wrote that in 1855 about a slave who lived here in Mammoth Cave, Kentucky. And he described Stephen as the chief ruler over this entire cave. And I think those are pretty strong words. I think it's a great testament to the freedoms that the slave guides were able to feel here.